Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am recording this on January 24th. Thank you for joining. Greatly appreciate it. Please help support the work that I do by sharing the links and asking your social media to follow me. You can follow me on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. If you like the work that I do, also you can help support by buying the products. I have ebooks, supplements, and course material in immunology and pulmonology on my store. You can also donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee on my homepage. You can be a paid member to my Patreon channel and my Substack channel. You can also follow me on X, GETTR, and TikTok. So thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to go over some of the news. Right now, we're going to deal with tariffs, oil prices, and the economics of energy dependence by the Center of Strategic and International Studies. But before I do that, please go to my store and get the structural nano silver gels. You can get it in the easy dispenser type and also the tube version. You use them the same way. If you have a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, put the gel on the lesion. It'll help to heal it quicker. In addition, you can apply this on your skin daily to help the health of your skin, to clear it. And if you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears. Lightly coat your nostrils. It'll stay active for 5.5 hours. Much higher quality and stays active much longer than Perel. So it behooves you to get the silver gel. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Also, I have structural nano silver toothpaste. This toothpaste has no fluoride in it. Get a few tubes of this for your household. This will help to neutralize, improve the health of your oral cavity. And when you have better oral hygiene, you're improving your cardiovascular health and your valvular health. Really important. This is the best toothpaste that you can get. Get a few tubes of this for your household. And again, this is super important to use during the winter season to help to neutralize, and you know what you want to neutralize during the season, don't you? And magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc will help to boost up that immune system, super important during the winter season, and magnesium and zinc will help with your brain function. Magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3, so it's a very important supplement to take. Please go to my store and get the magnesium and zinc. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
After a busy and remarkable week in geopolitics, in energy policy, we're back again with another episode of Energy Shots. Kevin, it's so great to be here with you.
Great to see you, Joseph. So I have to say, we're recording on Thursday morning. We will broadcast at our usual Friday time slot. So caveat emptor, if anything happens in this dynamic week between now and then. Well, you bring that up. That's a great place to start because I have a gift for our viewing audience.
And what is that?
Well, it's a neologism, a new word created to help explain why we need that caveat before we start this episode. It's called InFOMO, which is like regular FOMO, but for information, informational fear of missing out. And in this time that you just described, there's a lot moving very fast, so quickly that 24 hours might be an entirely different world, entirely different market. And so it's InFOMO. It might also be InFOMO, which is that there's so much information going on that it's flooding the zone. Either way, there's your word for where we are.
Well, this is, this week was such a fascinating thing to watch because you had the president taking a very aggressive stance on Greenland. We have continued consideration of military action against Iran as the protests there continue pretty steadily and unabated. And then you had the World Economic Forum, and I have to say this is one time where a trip to Davos actually looked pretty appealing to me, given all that was happening with the speeches, the statecraft. What are two or three things that you watched this week?
It's amazing how that can crowd out some of the other things that are still going on, including negotiations mediated by the U.S. between Ukraine and Russia, and possibility of sanctions here in the U.S. if they don't go well against Russia, and also structural change to how oil sales, contracts, production are coming out of Venezuela, which is still very meaningful and important.
Of course, this week we saw the first delivery, some of the first deliveries of this sort of U.S. custodial sales of oil coming out of Venezuela. So we have the ongoing storylines and all of these new ones. But I think today what we want to talk about is a little bit of a look back. We're 1 year now into the Trump administration, right? Dramatic changes in U.S. energy policy, U.S. climate policy, and U.S. approach to multilateral problems writ large.
Well, I think the focal point, really, if we look back at the last year, was the president's deployment of his signature policy. You know, another thing that's going on is that everybody keeps waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act case to figure out whether the president's tariff-setting powers, which he displayed very ably with regard to Greenland just a few days ago, will be legal and what they might be replaced with. So maybe a focal point that is a good starting point for this conversation would be Liberation Day.
Now let's talk about it.
April 2nd, 2025. The president deploys his reciprocal and global tariffs, and markets crash. And so if you look back from that as base 100 being the day, April 1st, markets, crude markets, the S&P closed, and look at what happened. You have a divergence, and a divergence that happens to map directly to what the president said he wanted to do. He wanted lower energy prices, and he wanted more American prosperity. Of course, there's a lot of ways to measure prosperity besides the S&P 500, but using it as a marker, up as of yesterday's close on the 21st, 22 points since that base 100 on April 1st of 2025, and crude down a little bit more than 12 points, and actually down a little bit more even today as we're doing this broadcast, recording it ahead of Friday's release. And so what do you have? You have lower energy prices globally, and also a stock market that seems to have improved. How does that look to you?
I mean, if you were to look at the statements of leading economists, you know, but by estimation, the tariffs that the president released on Liberation Day were the largest, sort of second largest unilateral tax increase on the American population ever, right? And I don't know that you would have thought that you'd see such durability in the S&P 500 over the course of the year, even though tariffs got traded away and very.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift over the video here to the upper screen. I have quite a bit to comment about this. The reality of the situation is this: almost every single economist on Bloomberg was wrong. In April, when Trump announced his tariff policy, they thought the economy was going to crash, and that it would never come back, and that it was the end of American dominance, and that the dollar was going to be depreciating rapidly, and the bond market yields would skyrocket, and the equity market would tank even further. And what did I say? What did Dr. Paul say? What did he say? I said, buy and don't bet against America, because guess what? This is a perfect opportunity to get wealthy. And for the ones that followed my advice, you made a lot of money. All right? And I tell you on my shows on how to do it. All right? Almost every single economist was wrong. And the reason why, it's not because I have a Ph.D. in finance. It's not because I've traded the markets for more than 20 years professionally. Guess what? It's because I understand that you have to have a robust economy and build your economic clusters. Though that tariff policy was all about strengthening and reinforcing and growing the economic clusters in the United States. And all the economists kept on thinking, well, you have to have comparative advantage, and you got to outsource, and you have to bring down your labor costs and all this stuff. They were all wrong. And here's the reason. Their econometric models are parsimonious. They can't fully model in real time or even lagged the full dynamics of a chaotic system, because the chaotic system has feedback loops, positive and negative, with so many degrees of freedom that it's indeterministic. You can't model it. So stop pretending you can. You can't model it. The best you can do is say, our model can only model a fraction of what the chaos is happening. And since that is the case, you can never be fully sure how a certain policy is going to propagate into the market. Now, if markets are stable or if the economies are stable, you can tweak it within a range. But when you change major dynamics like trade policy, foreign flows, energy dominance, it changes the whole equation. And the economists, the econometrics can't keep up. Every single economist on Bloomberg in April 1st, 2nd, it was 2nd, that when, so April 2nd, when it was announced, and throughout the whole April, called it wrong. And I said, don't bet against America, buy the equities. The dollar is moving towards a 10-year average. It was elevated because of the COVID era. And that America's back. And if you listen to me, you made money. If you listen to the Bloomberg talk hosts, they were wrong. The famous economists, they were wrong. Even the alternative news and podcasters out there that are negative on the dollar, they were wrong. Very few people understood the situation like I did. Okay, now with that said, it is important to understand that there's something bigger happening with the United States. It's metaphysical, and you can't model it in any kind of metric model. We have now reached the 250th anniversary of the United States and completed a cycle of Pluto around the sun. The birth of our nation is tied to Pluto. Why? I have no idea. All right, but it is. And we've finished that cycle. Now, looking back at 250 years, did it make sense to bet against George Washington, our founding fathers, and the Constitution? The answer is no. Now, do you really want to bet against America in the next 250 years? The answer is no. There's a metaphysical Cobb energy force that is a blessing to the United States. But we can't have hubris. We have to have humility and some wisdom to navigate into the future. But America's back, and America's not going to fail. All right? That's the reason why. Right there. That's the reason why. That's the reason why your S&P 500 now is higher. All right? And oil costs, this is measured in Brent, but oil costs are starting to go down. Now, if you pay attention to me, how to manage the energy markets and the equity markets, and what's going on with Bitcoin, right? We'll make money. Just listen. Just listen to me. And not only that, if you pay attention to what I have to say about how to slow down the aging process, it'll work too. Because that's what I do. And I'm older than Alex Jones. So all of these people out there, like Alex Jones, that thought it was the end of the world in April of last year, I said, he's wrong. He's wrong. There were other famous podcasters that said the same thing. They were wrong. Okay. Let's continue. All right, so this is the scorecard for the S&P 500 based at 100, which was, they're not showing absolute price of the S&P 500, they're showing relative growth of it. So 100 was what it was at on April 1st, and then how much it grew. So from April 1st, 2025 to January 21 of 2026, it went up 22%. Now, Brent, all right, normalized at 100 at April 1st, 2025, is now at 87.6. So it has gone down 13%. Now, with cheaper oil around the world, with more military dominance in a growing economy, do you really want to bet against America? Does that make sense to bet against America? The answer is no. Almost every single economist is wrong. And I just told you why. Because they are over-reliant on a parsimonious econometric theory. They cannot model indeterministic chaos.
Trade deals. This is a significant change in U.S. tax and fiscal policy, and markets seem kind of durable. And at the same time, the president has continued to say we want low oil prices, and prices have gone down.
A lot of that credited to OPEC plus adding back headline barrels to the global supply when markets were already long, and also maybe some demand weakness, which may be coincidental to the tariffs that you mentioned, but maybe not.
We're all vulnerable to type 2 errors in making attribution. And so one of the things I think we can look at, and one of the things I looked at for this week is to share what happened with manufacturing employment and output. Much of the tariff storyline is about the U.S. using more aggressive tools in international negotiations, but a lot of it is also about restoring manufacturing jobs as a key component of domestic well-being, right? That the administration thinks that manufacturing jobs are the ones that should support families, they make the U.S. stronger. The more we make it home, the more secure our economy is. All sorts of
builds up the economic cluster.
Seasons. And so the question is, are the tariffs working to change manufacturing output? So we pulled data from the Fed and from BLS, and what we see here is first blue, which is manufacturing employment, and we have a very non-zero start to the chart. This is thousands of jobs. And you see like a bit of a trend downward in manufacturing employment. This is about a 0.3% drop over the course of the year. So it's not a catastrophe, but you do see a little bit of a fall off. By contrast, we have in the green bars here, the manufacturing index. It's set to 2017 for normative reasons. And while it fell a little bit.
Employment in thousands and manufacturing index in the bars. All right, manufacturing index is the y-axis on the right. Employment by thousands are for manufacturing is the y-axis on the left. All right, so employment seems to have been trending down. Manufacturing index has been steadily moving upward since July of 2025, steadily moving upward. So our manufacturing, our manufacturing is increasing.
Over the course of the year, we saw quite a bit of stability, and now you actually see rising productivity, much of that being in base metals and aircraft.
Is that seasonally adjusted?
I did not seasonally adjust this one. We'll get to seasonal adjustment in a minute. But what the storyline you might talk yourself into toward the end of the year, there's been some productivity increases in manufacturing. That might not be bad for the administration's agenda. Much of what they're trying to achieve are not just numbers of jobs, but good jobs. And it'll be interesting to see. This is such an experiment in economic policy. It'll be interesting to see what the next year brings.
It's an experiment in politics too. I mean, as a matter of economics, I think most people who run businesses would rather have lower labor intensities of production.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of politics, most people who run campaigns would rather create jobs.
Right.
And so economics always wins in the long run. But in politics, as I think we've said on this show before, there is no long run.
And the other major thing to think about in this context is, what does this mean for energy? So here we have actually seasonally
increased consumption
for the industrial sector here in the U.S. We don't have the new enough data to look at 2025 in terms of all energy consumption for manufacturing. Hopefully our friends at the EIA can speed that process up as part of their modernization. We've got Liberation Day denoted here. And not much to annual signal, actually. This is kind of, once you seasonally adjust, because there's a lot of electricity consumption in the summertime, you don't see a lot of change in 25 into 26. And compared to previous years, this is about a 2% year-over-year increase in every month. And so we see, again, like a little bit more manufacturing activity in terms of electricity consumption. Maybe some electrification of facilities is occurring here, but no major changes.
The use of
Reason
AI.
why this is, of course, interesting is we are also now manufacturing intelligence in large data centers. And so how much that new demand signal is changing electricity prices is not just a big source of concern for politicians in facing a mid-year or midterm election, but is a question for the broader economic agenda of reshoring manufacturing.
Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum, also the chair of the National Energy Dominance Council, is fond of using the words intelligence factory instead of the words data center, because he wants to get to that manufacturing of intelligence, which he mentions is also as a non-specific good that can be an input to all industries as a precursor to all economic propositions.
Base metals, tokens, well, whatever you need, the US can make it.
Including research.
And Kevin, fossil fuels.
And fossil fuels. Well, this is where things get interesting. So the proposition that the president put out there for lower energy prices has a bit of a headwind for investment in energy. One of the things that people who sell energy like is higher prices, which again goes back to that politics economics dichotomy. And what we have here is an adjusted investment for upstream oil development based on the cost index using a 2000 base. And so this gives you a sense of sort of what real investment looks like. And then you can see that the new output that happens within a year of that investment.
Can I briefly pause for interpretation? So this cost index is like, equipment, pipes, labor might have been cheaper in one year or another. And this gives us a way to sort of estimate that.
Right. To think about investment in common size terms rather than looking at a nominal number that may reflect significant cost increases. This is a way of netting out that cost factor. So leaving aside what the actual numbers would be on the y-axis, what we have is something that's consistent across the expanse of time. And so it gives us a way to look at what oil output did based on that sort of real-ish investment. And what it does is it correlates really closely, right? So it's about a 0.6 R squared, 0.8 positive correlation, which, by the way, if you square it, comes to 0.64. So there's your 0.6. Math is fun. And what do you get? Well, you get this notion that if you have lower prices, you probably get less investment. If you have higher prices, you get more investment. When you have more investment, you get more oil. And then you get lower prices. Seems like there's a bit of a cycle.
The cure for high prices is
high prices, apparently. Dr. Market says that.
And yet what the administration wants to see, what the American voter may want to see, is low prices and higher output. What's the story of that?
Well, so we could say that generally speaking, supply curves slope upward. And those two goals can be relatively difficult to manage in parallel. But on the other hand, there was a different story we talked about a couple episodes ago about eliminating regulatory burdens and trying to bring down the costs for production so that you'll get more output at a lower market price. But there are some basics about how the world works. And I think this is a good time to have a conversation about that, because we did mention that Venezuelan oil and the idea of adding supply to a long market. There are some relationships you can count on. And I mean, this relationship we have is one that I count on. And I very much look forward to our episodes every 2 weeks, just as we, by the way, look forward to your comments online. Please keep them coming. We love them. We enjoy them, even the salty ones. So the stockpiles globally, the OECD crude commercial stockpiles, inversely correlate very closely with nominal oil prices, which should not come as a surprise. This is one of those intuitive relationships. And that's what you see here. A trailing 12-month average nominal spot price of Brent crude is the blue line, and the OECD commercial crude stockpiles is the green line. And when one goes up, the other goes down, so vice versa.
This is the COVID year. We see, a big drop off in consumption, lots of stockpiling, big fall off in price.
Yeah, so picking this time interval really illustrates the dynamics. I think in a way that brings it home to anybody who had any questions.
It's a beautiful chart.
It's not the only relationship, but it's one of the ones that's so strong, it's really hard to miss. When you have supply so far ahead of demand, inventories build, the logical conclusion would be all other things being equal, prices are likely to fall.
And should one project the two lines on this screen to sort of expect a harmonic pattern here, where again, the blue and the green will cross and you'll see prices continue to decrease as stock costs continue to rise?
Well, it's a question, and it depends on other things. Maybe we should go to the next slide and talk about some of those other things.
Yes.
This is a relationship that's a little bit less tight. So not as tight as our relationship.
Right.
And what we have here is what we like to think of at Clearview as the capacity utilization of the production system for oil, which is not just supply coming out, but also the spare capacity available. And how much of that capacity is being used by consumption.
Not just how much is being produced, but how much could be produced in an emergency, or if OPEC Plus decided to open the tap.
Decided to open the taps.
Exactly.
And so the blue line is still the very same average trailing 12-month nominal Brent price. And you can see it moving up and down just as it did on the last chart, because it's the same line. The green line in this case, though, is that production system capacity utilization metric that we've created. And it tracks pretty closely. You can see it sometimes it over and undershoots, and there are some collinearities that are built in. If consumption it turns out to fall down, then maybe OPEC adjusts supply and spare capacity goes up. But generally speaking, these two move together too, which is to say you cannot think about the crude market without thinking about OPEC Plus. You cannot think about supply and demand without thinking about the out-of-market effects that can come from OPEC Plus and also from government strategic stockpiles, a conversation we have very frequently. The reason we talk so much about OPEC Plus, the reason we talk so much about the SPR and other strategic reserves in the world is because they are out-of-market effects that can change supply-demand balances. But this, I think, brings us to the next slide and sort of the next discussion, which is how do you really think about what adding supply to the market does to price?
And I asked you specifically to talk about this because the big questions surrounding the resumption of Venezuelan oil production, exports into the market, the president's desire to see that help push oil prices down to 50 or below. What does the data actually tell us about that?
Well, there's a lot of ways to get an answer. I remember the days back when I was a sell-side research analyst. I was at an event with another sell-side research analyst, very competitive context. And as you might imagine, we were talking about our oil price models because we were essentially peering together, saying the same things. He said he had 300 independent variables in his model. I was like, well, that's a lot of independent variables. I only have like 20. I'm not sure all of them were equally explanatory. He obviously had to do a lot of work to come up with projections of 300 independent variables. And the point is, you can come up with very complex numbers in the oil market. You can get a pretty good number that's true until it's not. Or you can come up with back-of-the-envelope models.
Right.
And we tend to prefer back-of-the-envelope models because they're easy. And one way to do that is to work backwards from the price elasticity of demand.
Yes.
And to look at an observed price elasticity of demand. We have two endpoints we use, one for the market as it was before and now as it is now. So this sort of embeds a lot of assumptions about the market having those two endpoints. And then looking at what it means if you add supply using a price elasticity of demand equation. And that gives us this incredibly linear, incredibly static back of the envelope chart. And what it shows is that if you add 1 million barrels, you get about $7.25 per barrel. And if you subtract them, you lose about $7.25.
And what gives us this bow tie shape? Is this uncertainty? Is this sort of randomness? Like what is 2 to 8?
So yeah, the difference here is that the low end of the range reflects the price elasticity of demand as observed at a time when the market was least responsive. And this is the more responsive market of yesteryear. And somewhere between those two is probably the truth.
Right.
And so that's where you get the range. Now, this does not account for the out-of-market interventions that I mentioned, like government strategic stockpiles or OPEC Plus. It also doesn't account for the recursive responsiveness of supply to demand, which you would embed into any dynamic modeling exercise. This is a ballpark back-of-the-envelope estimate. But what it tells you is that if you get that extra 1 million barrels per day, all other things being equal, nothing else changed, you would knock a $7 barrel or so at the upper end of the range off the crude price, which might be a less than satisfactory reward for companies considering very significant upstream investment.
Right. And that sort of demonstrates the sort of like the economic concerns we heard from executives at the White House about the big re-entry into Venezuela immediately.
Yeah, but of course you have to think about the bigger picture. Will demand grow? Is this static analysis meaningful in that context. This is just a good way to think about any sort of price movement at a given point in time. And it's also important to remember that both sides of this bow tie matter, because we're still talking about, as you mentioned, Iran risk. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier strike group on its way to the CENTCOM area of responsibility, and questions about
All right, let me
discuss
boil this down into a very quick description here. So the x-axis is changes in millions of barrels of oil per day, and then the price change in the y-axis, the price per barrel. So if you reduce 1 million barrels, it's projected to increase the price by anywhere from $2 to $8. So most likely it would increase it by about 5. All right. If you increase 1 million barrels into inventories, all right, then you're going to have approximately a $8, anywhere from a $2 to $8 reduction in the futures price, right? So the current contract futures market. So approximately for every million barrels of oil, at 1 million barrels of oil, you're probably going to be changing the price plus or minus $5. And this is the reason why. You just step back, and this is the reason why. When you take a look at the actual futures market in oil, when you hear there's 2.5 million barrels of oil, let's say there's 2 million barrels of oil more than expected, then the price drops. And what does it drop to? It can drop, $5 to $8, and that is close. Close to this estimate. If you start hearing that the inventories have gone down 2 million, then the price is going to go up, maybe $8 or so. So it's close. It's close. Usually these swings are like 2.5, 3, 4 million barrels.
Next episode. I think we very well might. Kevin, it's such a pleasure to be with you today. Colleagues joining us online, thank you very much. We hope you have an energetic day. And Kevin, we'll see you on the next one.
All right.
That's a good. That was a good. That was a very informative. If you really pay attention to some of the details, it's very informative what's going on. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soaps. This will help to improve the health of your skin. Get a few bars for your household. You can get it in lemongrass, charcoal tea tree, and in peppermint. Very high quality structural nano silver soaps. Get a few bars for your household. If you have muscle pain, joint pain, even headaches or bruises, use the super strong relief. Apply it onto the area of pain, onto your skin, and within about 30 seconds or 60 seconds, the pain's going to go away. This will also help to reduce headaches. Just apply it on your neck muscles, your temple, your forehead, and that will relieve the headache. It's a very high quality product. Please go to my store and get the super strong relief. If you have joint pain, also apply it to the joint pain to relieve the joint pain. To help boost up your immune system and to neutralize and improve your oral cavity, get the Cleanse Max 35 or Max 14. They're all at different price points with different concentrations. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Max 14 is 14 parts per million. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. They're at different price points, but you take them the same way. Teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and swallow it. This will help to boost up your immune system, improve the health of your oral cavity, your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal lining, and help with the health of your epithelial cells. When you are improving your oral cavity, you're also helping your cardiovascular system and the health of your valves, of your heart. So take this every day. I've been taking this for over 5 years. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. boost up that immune system and improve your oral health. And by improving your oral health and neutralizing bacteria, guess what? You're improving your cardiovascular health. And the probiotics. Probiotics are really important for gut biome. So you can get it in a powder form or in the veggie cap form. And by having a good gut biome, what it will do is improve the mucosal lining, increase your immune system, increase the concentration of IgA, which is really important, reduce leaky gut syndrome, allow you to sleep better, allow you to concentrate, get rid of that brain fog. With better sleep, you're detoxifying your central nervous system and consolidating memory. So having a good probiotic is actually helping with brain function. And it's speeding up your metabolism and allowing you to absorb your nutrients better. So please go to my store, get the probiotics. It will also help with skin health. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. All right. Let's take a look at some of the let's listen into, is Starlink helping Iranians bypass the internet's shutdown? By CNN.
Local tax experts are here. Now you can meet with a TurboTax expert in your community. They can do your taxes for you. They get you every dollar you deserve. Local tax experts are here.
For this week's show, I was trying to think of what we can kind of discuss, and the only thing that I'd seen on my social media was one story, the Iran protests. It's all over like my socials, my feeds. So that's kind of the only thing that I see that is kind of trending, that is kind of worth us talking about. I mean, what are we on, the 8th day of an internet blackout?
Yeah, we're about to enter the 8th day. And this is something I wanted to look into. You know, in the past, this isn't the first time Iran's shut down their internet, but in the past, we've been able to get messages in and out, be it intermittently. But I know some of our colleagues have been able to, but for me, it's been complete silence, not being able to talk to some of my family I have in Iran. So I really wanted to dive into this and figure out why the shutdown is happening, the tech behind it. So let's watch that. I'm sure there'll be a lot to discuss on the back of it. Iran is experiencing one of the most severe internet shutdowns we've ever seen. Independent monitoring groups like NetBlock show that Iran's connectivity dropped significantly on January 8th, effectively cutting some 90 million people off from the outside world.
In Iran, we've seen that internet connectivity has been disrupted and services really highly limited. There's a baseline of connectivity around 1% of ordinary levels that we've tracked before.
What is that 1%?
We understand that authorities
That's
use
strategic
amount of connectivity for their own uses. This might be to track what's happening externally outside the country, or to publish posts and online content to tell their version of events to the outside world.
This isn't the first time that Iran has shut down their internet, but experts say this time around is a lot more sophisticated.
So it's amongst the most severe internet disruptions we've tracked around the world. If we look at 2019, we see that the capability is there, the ability to switch off networks, but we saw that this was quite a manual process. It was basically a central authority picking up the phone, instructing individual operators to switch off service. And then fast forward to 2025, during the Israel-Iran war, and you now see near total automation of the process. So this is the gateway, really automating the process of switching off the network. And it's almost an instantaneous process at that point.
Toker says in the past, many Iranians were able to get around these restrictions using software like VPNs, or even driving to the borders to connect to neighboring countries' cell towers. He added that those methods no longer work reliably as government censorship has evolved and monitoring has become increasingly dangerous. So some people have placed their hope in satellite internet terminals like Elon Musk's Starlink, which can bypass local telecom networks. But even when satellite signals are available, accessing from the ground still remains the biggest challenge.
Using a Starlink itself is not a difficult thing to do. It's just you have a satellite, putting it, you connect some cable and push some buttons, and that's it. The problem is you need to have that device in a country like Iran. This is not something that you can go to the market and easily purchase. We're talking about an authoritarian country. In this context, even purchasing this kind of technology is a big challenge, is a huge challenge. There is market, black market, but again, it's a difficult. Plus, it's very expensive. So you can imagine how much money a family or a group of people need to pay for the device and also to pay for the subscription.
On January 13th, Starlink began extending free access for users in Iran. And experts tell CNN that they believe there may be some 50,000 Starlink receivers in the country. But using Starlink can be incredibly risky, as terminals can be detected and users can be identified if protection methods fail. Experts also say there's evidence to show that Iran is disrupting the satellite connection itself. It's something that we've never seen this regime do in the past.
There have been clear attempts to jam connectivity, Starlink terminals, and we've also seen this during the Russia's war in Ukraine. So it very much looks like a transplant of the same type of jamming technology. It looks at the same level of sophistication, possibly indicating information sharing between Russia and Iran.
One hopeful technology that could help the people of Iran circumvent government restrictions is direct to cell, which means users could bypass the hardware terminals on the ground and connect their mobile directly to the satellites.
Direct cell satellite technology is a very compelling technology. This is the great idea, the dream of internet freedom, that you could beam internet into a country, people's phones will light up, and they'll be able to communicate and restore democracy in that country. Now, it's not quite there yet. This needs a new generation of satellites. These satellites are much bigger than the previous generation of Starlink satellites. Nevertheless, some of them are in orbit and have been trialed, are in use. But I think it's fairly clear that these satellites aren't in the right orbit right now to supply that to Iran. So switching it on is not necessarily a capability that exists right now.
It is worth mentioning that none of these options replace a fully functioning internet, and they all carry serious risk. We don't know when or if internet access will be restored in Iran, but as the country remains dark, one thing is clear. Silence is being imposed at a time when people are trying to be heard.
Sprint brings everything to get your brand in front of your fans, like t-shirts, water bottles, and totes, so everyone can gift it, work in it, and take it. Whether it's one of a kind or one for your whole team, if you need it, we print it with 20% off for new customers at Bitchute.
You guys mentioned at the top that this blackout is now into its 8th day, and we heard from one of the experts there that he said it's one of the most severe that he's seen. You said you have family there for people like you, people around the world that are trying to get in touch with family and check on their well-being. Must be quite scary. Is there any indication of how long it could go on for?
Well, that's the problem. We don't really know. And, you know, Iranian media closely affiliated with the Revolutionary Guard, so take it how you will, said yesterday that it could take up to 2 weeks until they reach a decision if they'll restore internet, you know, based on the relevant authorities. So, you know, who knows what that means? Who knows how long it could take? But Iranian media is saying 2 weeks potentially.
I had no idea about what he said that Starlink could be jammed like that, because I had obviously done a lot of research on Starlink for that piece I did in December. I had no idea that was even possible. Do we know any more about
Well,
that?
this is what we spent most of our time talking about, because obviously it requires a lot of sophistication to be able to do this. And it's not like what they're doing with their mobile networks where they can just flip a switch and turn everything off. They have to kind of geolocate and jam in specific locations or neighborhoods. So, you know, seeing that they're doing this, we know now that there's this level of sophistication. And people, anytime you turn on a Starlink terminal in Iran, you're risking your life because it's contraband, it's illegal. So, you know, that's something to watch as well. And people on the inside have to be careful with.
I definitely know the least about Starlink, the three of us, but that was the first time I was hearing of that direct to cell. Can you tell me, I mean, as somebody that doesn't know much about that, give me an explanation.
Well, yeah, I mean, Alp said it, brilliantly. He's like, this is the dream when it comes to mobile connection. We're a couple of years away from it. He mentioned there's some satellites in orbit that have the capabilities, but it's mainly for like SOS signals in case someone's hiking and they're in trouble, and it will send them an SMS. It's really difficult to use this technology where it is right now to be able to, let's say, upload protest videos from inside you. So, some experts say this could take 5, 6 more years until we have enough of these specific type of satellites in the sky to actually use for, what we use our mobile networks for.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very concise explanation.
One to watch over the next couple of days.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty. All right, this next video.
My healthcare provider.
I don't really have much to say about the Starlink in terms of Iran, but I think it's interesting that there's other means to try to get communication. It does seem that we're not getting enough like what's going on the ground. Now, Trump's probably going to hit Iran. The question is when. Now, I suspect that when he does hit Iran, when the Abraham Lincoln is in the region, and supposedly it might even be there, who knows? Early on, there was reports that the Gerald Ford from Venezuela was going to go there with the Lincoln. Then later reports said the Lincoln strike group, the aircraft carrier, was going to go only. So I'm not sure really what the story is there. It's probably just the Lincoln. There was also another story on X that I think it was George Bush aircraft carrier was coming into the region too. So, but I haven't heard anything other than that one report. So that might be just garbage. You got to be careful because there's a lot of stuff that's just said, especially on X, that may not necessarily be true. But I think it's very important to understand that Trump is getting ready for a hit. If he does hit Iran, it's going to probably have overwhelming power in terms of areas of striking. All right. Some rabbis out there in Israel are saying, you know what? Iran is planning on making a major offensive during Passover, which is in April, beginning of April. So this may be another reason why in the region we're moving more military power, military equipment in that region for that potential event. Question is are we going to wait for that event to happen and then strike? Are we going to try to deter it by just showing force in the region? Are we actually going to have an offensive even before they potentially make their strike on Passover? Iran makes their strike on Passover? Who knows? But I think it's going to affect the energy markets. When we hit, it's probably going to be with more violence and more destruction than during the B-2 bomber run. So I suspect that oil will pop $5 or more a barrel. All right. And it may sustain there for a little while. We may see this not just in a day, but it may actually be for a few weeks. It all depends on what happens. And then if we have any casualties, especially lost aircraft or some of our ships are knocked out or hit, oil prices will go to $10 a barrel. All right. So there's this moment where you might want to hedge it, but if things don't happen in Iran, oil prices are probably going to start to drift down. Now they're drifting slightly up because of the cold weather in the United States, but in the next 10 days, it's going to get warm again, and then oil is probably going to start to drift down. But if Trump does that hit within the next 10 days or even after the cold spell, oil could spike. So it's kind of hard to, right now, it's a little hard to go long on oil because it's trading at like $61 for WTI, close to 62. It's a little bit on the high range for the trading range. It's 56 to about 61 is the trading range. All right, so it's a little, you don't really want to go long, but you might have to hedge it. You really want to short. So this is where I'm saying that you can't model chaos. And Trump, when he hits Iran, there's going to be a chaotic event that takes place in the market. Okay, let's listen into Michael Knowles' reaction to Christopher Nolan's Odyssey trailer. I saw the trailer. I saw two versions of the trailer. I think that they missed the boat. I think the concept is a good concept, but in some areas of the movie, it seems as though it's kind of almost surreal. It's got like almost a mythical surrealism in terms of the cinematography and the post-production. I don't like it. So, but let's see what he has to say.
I rarely look forward to new movies because they're all the same Marvel slop, which is not only left-wing but also very boring. However, there is a movie that I'm looking forward to. It is directed by Christopher Nolan. I really like Christopher Nolan. Some people think he's the greatest filmmaker ever. I think his movies are good. I've enjoyed them over the years. I'm not a fanboy camping out on the street, but I hear Christopher Nolan, I say, oh, this could be good. And it's about the Odyssey, which is one of the greatest and most important poems ever written. Yeah, there's this guy named Homer from a long time ago, and the Odyssey is the follow-up to the Iliad, and the Odyssey is kind of more exciting. The Iliad's a better poem, but the Odyssey is more exciting. It's shorter and it's faster, and I don't know. So anyway, it's got a good cast, right? Matt Damon. Political views are wrong, but he's a good actor. Matt Damon plays Odysseus, and Tom Holland is there. I think he plays Telemachus. One of the great lines in all of literature is from Telemachus in the Odyssey, who says it's a wise man who knows his own father. So anyway, I'm looking forward to a movie for the first time probably in years. The trailer is out now, and are my hopes just too high? Am I going to be disappointed? Let's find out.
See this part, if you can see it, this part looks really good. The cinematography on this part is great.
No one could stand between my men.
This is done really well. There's a sea.
Not even me.
I'm trying to get it so you can see it. There's a lot of darkness.
See that Cyclops.
So the cinematography on this part of the movie is really done really well. That's me. You will come back.
What if I can't?
So this trailer is good. All right. All right. Now I'm gonna stop Nolan's. I'm gonna stop Nolan's for a second here. And we're gonna go to okay, I'm gonna try to find the second trailer. Is it this one? No. All right. So he showed the official trailer, and there's this other one. All right, this one right here. I don't like this. I don't like this version of
I mean, we all do it. You see a line, have no idea what it's for, but your brain is like, should I join it? It's crazy, right?
Hey, let me call you back. I got to stand in a line.
Even
We won the war.
See? There's this mythical kind of cinematography with it, probably at the very beginning of the movie. I think it's garbage. See, it's almost like it looks like AI generated.
Forget is
See?
good.
See, it's like surreal. It's got a surrealism post production. See what I mean?
Great test.
See, it almost looks like something generated from an AI. It doesn't even look real. So if you're going to spend that much money, at the beginning of the movie is some sort of AI generated surrealism and not real cinematography. Not so sure. See, he's got this.
He is alive.
It's garbage.
This throne is his.
This is probably at the very beginning of the movie.
I left as a king. I returned as a stranger. I'm still coming home.
So the second trailer sucks. Totally sucks. The first trailer is really good. Now the question is, how much of the movie is it this AI generated post-production surrealism? Now, I'm sure that Michael Knowles won't even go this deep into it because, sometimes he's a little superficial. But let's listen in.
It looks pretty good. Doesn't it look good? I think we're out of peak woke. I think woke is over. Had this been coming out, Christopher Nolan or not, especially if it were not with Christopher Nolan, had this been coming
The first version of it, the first trailer that was released, very good. Second one, something's not right about it. Something's not right. It's got that AI generated surrealism. I'm surprised that Michael Knoll didn't really dive in a little deeper. I mean, come on, dude, you're from Yale.
3 years ago, I'd say this is awful. Anne Hathaway's going to play Odysseus. Matt Damon was going to play the Siren. I don't know. The Cyclops would have special privileges according to the ADA. It would be a disaster. They'd all be black or Muslim or indigenous. No, I feel good about it. Nolan, it was clear, had a little more of a conservative impulse going all the way back to Dark Knight. And so you feel good about him. I don't care. Left-wing actors can be in some of the great right-wing movies. I mean, just think of Hail Caesar by the Coen brothers, who are magnificent filmmakers and clearly a little more on the right. But they made that great movie Hail Caesar starring George Clooney, who is the poster boy of left-wing Democrat Party darling in Hollywood. Clooney played himself as a bumbling left-wing, taken in by the communists kind of movie star in probably the most right-wing movie made in the last 50 years, Hail Caesar. So it can happen. And Matt Damon's a good actor. And who else is in here? Charlize Theron, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya. I still don't really know who Zendaya is.
There's one thing to look out for.
What?
Do you remember someone named Ellen Page, who's now Elliot Page?
Yes.
She's in the movie, but they don't tell you what character she plays as now a man.
She could be Telemachus. Telemachus is like a young, depends on where in puberty. I guess Telemachus is a little bit older, right? He's got his beard, which is why the mother, or the presumed widow of Odysseus, is now going to have to marry one of the suitors who's trying to take over the kingdom. But so it could be Ellen Page as Elliot, could be playing Telemachus. But no, they say Telemachus is someone else. This is Tom Holland. So I don't know. Is she one of the sirens?
They don't say. It's pretty hush hush.
I don't really buy Ellen Page as a siren today. I don't really buy that. Who could it be? She's not the Cyclops. She's kind of diminutive. Huh. Yeah, I don't. Well, I guess I'll just have to see it to find out. But that's fine. You know, just because someone has like weird sexual hangups doesn't mean they can't be in a movie. I mean, most people in the theater have weird sexual hangups. So if that were disqualifying, you'd lose a lot of great art. It's true of art generally. You know, we would lose Caravaggio and all of them. So, okay, I'm just reserving judgment. I look forward. When does it come out? $250 million budget.
July
Trailer
17th.
39 million views comes out in July. Okay, all right, I'm in. Sign me up. Take my $12 or whatever the movie's called.
It's going to be like $25, dude. Wake up. The cinematography at the beginning of the movie, I think, is going to be bad. If it's what has been shown in the second trailer, I don't know. That was a little stupid. But I think most of the movie probably would be done really well. Okay, with that, let's continue. Oh, that's interesting. 1,800 flights canceled as historic winter storm heads for U.S. Okay. Let's see here. Let's listen in on ABC 7 New York about the weather.
One place that is going crazy for this storm is Mountain Creek. I was there yesterday. I was skiing for 3.5 hours. I didn't mean to ski. We were up there like hiking and doing other stuff. And well, after tomorrow, they're gonna really love it.
Don't go tomorrow.
Not tomorrow.
You should not be on the roads. You should not be going anywhere.
But later this week.
But later this
Amazing.
week, man, I'm so excited for the ski areas with all the snow coming in. But unfortunately, we've got some dangerous weather to get through with it. Today, we're talking about the dangerous cold, and then our attention turns to the heavy snow tomorrow. 9 degrees right now in the city with that breezy wind, meaning it feels much colder. Just a forecast high of 18 today. So our highs are dropping 20 degrees from yesterday. But to put that in perspective, Thursday's high was 47. So it's been a really dramatic drop in temperature in 48 hours. And that contributes to the shock to your system as you step out. Sunrise is this morning at 7:13. Looking at actual air temperature this morning for the 5 boroughs, we're just in the single digits on Staten Island for New Dorp, 10 for Coney Island and Rockaway Beach, 10 in Valley Stream. Up near the Whitestone Bridge, we're at 11 degrees, 7 for West Orange. Zooming out, we're actually seeing sub-zero temperatures in terms of actual air temperature in Sullivan County this morning, just 5 and Andover, 9 for Bridgeport. But you got to talk about what your body actually reads, right? And that's the wind chill. We've had this blustery wind last night into this morning. It hasn't started to weaken yet. And that means these wind chills are dangerous. When you're getting close to 20 degrees below zero in terms of what your body's reading, that's where you could get frostbite in about 20 to 30 minutes. It can be really, really dangerous. So you want to limit that time outside if you can. And if you can't, because I know a lot of us still have storm preps to do, whether it's heading to the grocery store or just making sure everything's good outside your home, you got to cover every bit of exposed skin that you can because of how dangerous these wind chills are. This morning, we're still looking at gusts anywhere from 25 to 30 miles per hour close to the city, but you see out east in Montauk, still close to 40 miles per hour. That wind will weaken throughout the day, so might not see as much separation between air temperature and actual wind chill as we move into this afternoon, but it's still going to stay absolutely frigid. Cold enough through this morning and early afternoon that it prompted a cold weather advisory. It expires at noon, but I'll tell you, it's still going to feel like single digits or sub-zero into the second half of our Saturday. Then our attention turns to the winter storm on the way. We've now been upgraded to a winter storm warning across the board. That starts early tomorrow morning into first thing Monday morning. And it's not just us here in the Northeast. This is a major winter storm impacting about 190 million Americans. That's over half of the country's population. We've got snow and ice in parts of the south and east. That icing could lead to significant power outages in the southeast. And then that snow is headed our direction. So for today, it's the frigid cold and the increasing clouds. But that cold air sets the stage for it to be snow and heavy snow right from the get-go as that storm arrives early tomorrow morning. So timing this out, you see the teens as we head into this afternoon. We'll get a little bit of sunshine today with high clouds, but again, limit that time outside because of how dangerously cold it is. Overnight into tomorrow morning is when the clouds thicken up. So this is about midnight. We're still dry, we're still cold, but it's mostly cloudy. And then by sunrise tomorrow morning, we're starting to see the snow slide in. So from the city south and west is where the snow will arrive first. That's by about sunrise tomorrow morning. Looks like it arrives in the city between 7 and 9 a.m.
and then it is heavy for several hours. We're looking at snowfall rates anywhere between 1 inch and 2 inches per hour for about 4 or 5 hours tomorrow morning and afternoon. That's why we're looking at those snow totals really stacking up before that potential transition to sleet or ice. This is 11 a.m. Widespread heavy snow. Again, these snowfall rates are 1 to 2 inches an hour for hours and hours and hours. We'll continue with that heavy snow north and west of New York City as a bit of a sleet mixes in as we head toward 3, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Now, where that line sets up will really impact this potential snow totals in the city, right? At this point, the snow totals will start to settle down a little bit because we have more of that sleet mixing in rather than just the heavy snow. But the heavy snow continues north and west. We'll continue to see that potential for heavy snow north and west, a little bit of sleet closer to the city south and east through late Sunday night. Then we'll get one more round of snow late Sunday night and first thing Monday morning. That could add an additional 3 to 5 inches. And then this storm is out of here as we move into Monday and the cold really sets in. So this is a look at our expected snowfall totals. Over a foot of snow north and west of I-287, anywhere from 8 inches to about a foot in the city in the areas in white. This number can wiggle a little bit because of the potential for some of that sleet to mix in. If it mixes in a little bit earlier, we'll be on the lower end of the range in New York City. If it mixes in a little later, we could see up to about a foot. In terms of the icing, we will see some of that ice, especially south and west of New York City. That could lower those snow totals. But another reason why we don't want you to go outside tomorrow is the fact that it's still frigid cold. We're still looking at those single digit or sub-zero wind chills on Sunday because of the blustery wind that comes in with the snow. So it's one more reason why it's so dangerous. For today, here's a look at the hour by hour. You can see the actual air temperature making it to the teens this afternoon, but it's sub-zero or single digit wind chills all day long. That means a dangerously cold day ahead of us. You got to just take care of yourself and limit that time outside if you can. As we head into tonight, the cloud cover moves in. It stays absolutely frigid. And then tomorrow, active weather alert because of the heavy snow. Yes, we could get some sleet or ice mixing in south and east of New York City as we head toward tomorrow evening. But those snow totals are still going to have hours and hours and hours to stack up before that transition. So we are looking at heavy snow across the tri-state area and then settling into a stretch of frigid weather. We're not looking at temperatures. We're talking highs or lows to climb above the freezing mark until the start of February.
All right, we're going to go to a Fox News video. Nurse targets Levitt's pregnancy in online rant. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. Why? Because it's dual purpose and it'll save you money. Olive leaf extract will bring down inflammation and help with your lipid profile. That will help to boost up your immune system and prevent plaque formation. Multivitamins, super important to take. It's part of the foundation of the anti-aging protocol. These multivitamins are easy to digest, and they are cofactors for enzymatic activity, so you have a better metabolism and your cells perform properly. Please stack this with the probiotics to get the max benefit. Clarity factor, very powerful neural stack to help with your brain function. It will allow you to get rid of that brain fog, concentrate on tasks, and improve the dendritic connections so you're thinking faster and improving your memory. This is a very powerful stack that you should be taking every day. Please drink it with filtered water, take it every day. And omega-3 will help to improve your cardiovascular health, brings down inflammation, helps you to control your lipid profile, and reduces the over stickiness of your red blood cells to prevent overclotting. So a great stack. Help with your cardiovascular health with omega-3, help with your brain function with clarity factors, help with your overall cellular processes with the multivitamin and improve your cellular metabolism, and olive leaf extract to help boost up your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. So please go to my store, get the omega-3, clarity factor, multivitamin, and olive leaf extract. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. All caps, discount 5. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
On the left to a baby boom in the
Trump cabinet, but I think a real sort of cultural shift that they see happening in America where the messages of feminism about don't have a family, kids are a burden, are starting to get rejected. And young people are starting to go, you know what, I want to have a family and I can have a powerful career just like you see here, Carolyn Levitt, who's now pregnant with her second. Get this, there is a nurse who put online a TikTok video. Her name is Lexi Lawler. And she's a labor and delivery nurse, believe it or not, out in Boca Raton. And she said this when she learned about Carolyn Levitt having another baby. She says, as a labor and delivery nurse, it gives me great joy to wish Carolyn Levitt a 4th degree tear. And she went on to say some other crude things about basically hoping that Carolyn Levitt has a very painful and delivery that causes her lots of future medical problems. This is disgusting stuff, you guys.
Yeah, it's a real mental illness, and it goes beyond the just the concept that dudes can get pregnant. It goes to a very broken heart and hatred, a level of hatred that, and I guess some of it is probably exacerbated by the fact that this is on TikTok and it's online, and people think that they can just say things and that it has no meaning because it's all like online or whatever. But you have to be a seriously corrupted human to say something like that, especially when you work in an emergency room where you deliver babies. You know what all of this means, and the specificity of her wish is what is, to me, is kind of the most heartbreaking.
Imagine having her as your nurse.
You know, and you know, it's worth pointing out, during the first Trump administration, we saw similar things of this
I'll tell you
vitriol.
what, there's an awful lot of nurses and doctors, but an awful lot of nurses that are woke. A lot of them, you'll start seeing that they have, some, not just liberal tendencies, but strong woke tendencies.
Against Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Remember, they were running her out of restaurants, and the vitriol was there. But now, with this incident against Carolyn Levitt, it's a level of vitriol that really people need to be widely condemning it, and you're not seeing wide condemnation of it.
Yeah, well, she did get fired, but it's definitely troubling. And you're right, Charlie.
Oh, she was
something's wrong with that lady's heart, and
Yeah.
she should not be in labor and delivery. Nobody wants. It was like Nurse Ratchet. It's like that is not the kind of nurse you want to have.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brighteon Channel.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
All right, let's listen into the major storm is going to test the power grid across much of the U.S. this weekend. This is by Bloomberg. But before we do that, I probably want... No, let's listen into Bloomberg here.
Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Business Week Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. The Bloomberg Business Week Daily podcast with Carol Nasser and Tim Stenevang on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, folks, let's get to what is top of everyone's mind, and that is the winter storm stretching from the southern Rockies to New England. It is expected to impact at least 170 million Americans, including everybody around the table and certainly here at our New York bureau. Let's get the latest. Bloomberg News energy reporter Josh Saul back in the house with us. So where are we? Has it gotten any better?
Still gonna snow, Josh?
It's still gonna snow.
It's gonna snow a lot. We're gonna see up to a foot of snow here in New York City.
Okay.
On Sunday. I cancel my kids' basketball game. But snow is already falling in the Rockies. And what's amazing about this one is it's such a huge part of the United States. This will affect up to 170 million people, it's going to stretch 1,500 miles. And a big test will be Texas on Monday morning.
Why Texas is such a test? Is it because of what happened there a few years ago? Is it because of the concerns with the power lines freezing there? What is it?
It's partly because we saw so many deaths in such an intense power grid emergency almost 5 years ago. But Texas is not used to extreme cold. So when you have a polar vortex, pressing down from the Arctic like we have, that's going to put a lot of stress on the state. The state's power grid is expecting a demand peak of 84 gigawatts. That's not just going to be a winter record, it's going to get close to a summer record. And that much demand is going to be tough for the grid to keep up with.
Wait, can you just explain 84 gigawatts? We hear kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
Is sort of like what our own home energy use is measured in. Gigawatts we hear in relation to AI.
So gigawatts are the big boys.
Okay.
1 gigawatt is roughly the output of one nuclear reactor. So if you think of, the nuclear power plant in The Simpsons, 84 of those, producing power across Texas.
You know what? You've made my day. You've made my week. You've made my year by that reference. Hey, listen, Texas, though, we go back to 2021, right? That was when it was just really rough. Texas, I have a lot of family in Texas. It's not an area that usually has to deal with this kind of weather. The president was out, and I want to bring this into it, Josh, because you follow the environment, and he put out on social, record cold wave expected to hit 40 states. Rarely seen anything like it before. Could the environmental insurrectionists please explain whatever happened to global warming? What do you say to that? Because my understanding of global warming is, yes, the planet is getting warmer, but there's also extreme movements when it comes to weather overall. And that is certainly what we've seen.
That's right. So global warming is one term. Climate change is a more accurate, broader term, because what climate change does is it makes for more erratic swings in temperature and more types of extreme weather. So sometimes that can be global warming, a warming and a drying, making for more intense wildfires, for example. But it can also do things like make hurricanes more powerful by making more moisture in the air, so those swirling winds pick up more water out of the ocean.
And that's what we've seen in terms of intensity of storms, whether it's winter storms, whether it's hurricanes, and they're also happening in places that they didn't used to happen before.
Right, and actually with this storm, the fact that there's so much cold air pushing down out of the north, the reason it's able to come so far south and this storm is going to be striking Texas is because the jet stream is not keeping that polar vortex contained the way it normally would. You'd have to get a full-time weather reporter, not a power reporter, to explain whether that's a result of climate change.
Right.
But those kinds of weather patterns, it is what's making these storms so intense.
Well, I'm going to throw a power question your way and then talk a little about energy use. We know it's expected to increase, of course, as people turn up their heat when it gets colder outside and more heat is needed. Here in New York City, Con Edison, much of the lines for power lines are buried underground in New York City. Is that an advantage in a storm like this?
Yeah, for sure. The buried lines in a storm are much more secure. That's going to be better in places like California, which is working to bury its lines. That's better for preventing wildfires. And in a place like New York City, having the lines underground means they're less likely to freeze, get overloaded, have a tree fall into them, get knocked out in that way.
All right, gonna leave it there. Hey, Josh, thank you so much. And you've done this, keeping us up to date throughout the week. Appreciate it. Josh Saul, Bloomberg News energy reporter.
Stay with us. More from Bloomberg Business Week Daily coming up after this.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Business Week Daily podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. This will help to soak up free radicals and bring down inflammation. That will help to boost up your immune system. Also, by soaking up free radicals and bringing down the inflammation at the vascular level, you're reducing plaque formation, so your cardiovascular health will improve. And bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals in the neurons will help to improve the health of the neuron, and you will maintain and improve the dendritic connections, so you're thinking better and you'll have better memory. So please go to my store and get the turmeric. This will help to slow down the aging process.
Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app, or watch us live on YouTube.
All right, so let's add it all up, because we have had a jittery week when it comes to the market, moving
right.
sometimes off.
I'm gonna pivot over to Fox News, talking about massive armada moving to the Middle East. So this is dealing with the Lincoln strike group moving into the Middle East, potentially setting up for operations against Iran.
TurboTax locations are now open in your neighborhood. So hand off your taxes to an expert today. Now local experts do your taxes with.
The Trump administration is issuing new sanctions on Iran's shadow fleet of oil vessels as the president sends Iran a stern warning. Listen.
We have in Ramada, we have a massive fleet heading in that direction. And they won't have to use it.
The U.S. is building up its military presence in the Middle East ahead of a possible attack, and more ships are expected to be on the way. Let's bring in Dr. Kanta Ahmed. She's a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum and member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Good morning, Kanta. Thanks for joining us. You know, as we see this build up and these sanctions being added, where do you see this heading?
We're days away from, I think, an extraordinary strike. We don't move these kinds of assets for a vanity project. We have now 2 nuclear-grade Nimitz-class carriers, one in the Gulf of Oman, one heading across the Atlantic, probably heading for the Mediterranean and the Suez. We also have tremendous presence in the region, as you know, and the Iranian regime is going to be struck. I think there are many targets that we could go after, but most likely the United States will target the repressive Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps that is responsible for murdering tens of thousands of people, even now, wounding, some say 330,000 people, removing their eyes, horrendous brutality. And this is going to be, they're going to have an answer for that imminently.
You know, Kanta, we've had Moj Madara, an Iranian American activist, on the show last weekend. I was in contact with her. She says the numbers of dead is in the tens of thousands. We don't have an exact one. And I also was following your headline in the piece from the Telegraph yesterday where you're talking about the West silence.
First of all, we need proof. There needs to be proof that there's tens of thousands of protesters that were killed. Are there protesters killed? Yes. The question is it in the hundreds or is it in the tens of thousands? I don't think it's in the tens of thousands. It's probably in the hundreds or a couple thousand. Maybe even a few thousand. But where's the proof? Remember, the reason why I'm being so harsh about this, where was the proof of all the killings that were taking place during the Gulf War against Iraq? There were people that were being questioned in Congress, stating certain things that were complete lies. They were found out to be just lies. What about certain things being said in the Middle East that happen to be embellished that were not true? All right, in terms of how many people were being killed. So we need to be very, very careful about falling into the emotional fallacy and taking at face value what people are saying. Where's the proof? Where's the proof that there are these many people dying in Iran? I suspect there are many people dying in Iran, being killed in Iran. Tens of thousands? I'm not so sure. It seems awfully high. Where's the proof? Because you're talking mass executions, mass killings. There would have been pictures somewhere, somehow, floating around. And I haven't seen those. Maybe I can see hundreds or thousands of people being killed, but not tens of thousands being killed. So be very careful. You know, there's a narrative. There's a narrative here. Now, I think that we should destroy the Ayatollah. We should have done it when we used the bombing run by the B-2s. We had a perfect opportunity to decapitate the Ayatollah after that bombing run. Either the United States doing it or Israel or working together. Trump chickened out. So I'm for hitting Iran and destroying the theocratic regime. But where's the proof? Where's the proof of the atrocities?
Of Islamist growing power. Inside, you wrote, Iranians must endure a double tragedy, the crushing of their dreams by the regime and the shameful hypocrisy of Western progressives. And yet, you know, when you put the full context in this content, you have a whole generation who know nothing but Islamic regime oppression.
Exactly, exactly. I was a small child in Iran right before the revolution. And so to see that this has continued almost 50 years is unacceptable. In this day and age, when we're so connected, there's a huge communications blackout on Iran precisely to prevent people from knowing what's going on. And our youth here also does not understand. This is a noble, civilized, ancient people. They have so much to contribute to the world, and their time for lifting their regime has come. They are doing that themselves, but the United States is going to assist by eliminating their repressive security and brutal besiege thugs and others. And I think also from the position of the carriers, we're going for economic warfare as well. We're going to be targeting Iran's capability of exporting oil. I think there's going to be many developments very soon.
And you know, Cottrell, I want to pivot a little bit to this. This administration is really taking the gloves to ISIS, which is a growing presence, as we are now seeing. The U.S., though, says that they will no longer rely on Kurdish-led forces in the fight against ISIS, urging the Syrian government to take over the country's fight against the Islamic terrorist state. You know, what do you make of that?
Griff, this has been an absolute betrayal of the United States' most devoted allies, the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurdish forces. They gave 11,000 lives in the fight against ISIS so that Europe and the United States was not besieged by ISIS. And we've abandoned them. This has to be called upon with Senate hearings. We're now seeing the city of Kobani, which is on the border of Turkey, besieged. Children died last night. No electricity, no power. They're surrounded by al-Shara's Islamist jihadist forces. There's been a massacre, genocide on Yazidis, the people that were nearly erased by ISIS, all apparently okayed by Tom Barak, the U.S. Special Envoy. We need to listen to Senator Lindsey Graham. There needs to be Senate hearings on this. The United States must immediately impose a no-fly zone over northeast Syria, home to Christians, Yazidis, Kurds, and we cannot abandon these allies and allow Turkey to have its whim at eradicating these minorities. This is a disgrace.
And those Kurdish fighters are fierce. I watched them in 2016 taking on ISIS in Mosul. Kant Ahmed, great insight as always. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, Greg.
All right. I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
All right, we're going to go to Bloomberg. They interviewed Freeland, who's a crazy nut from Canada. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignins. This will help to soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation, help with your immune system and endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, and brain function. Again, bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals is key to slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store and get the lignins. I also have dual-purpose deodorants. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and in citrus. They're for males or for females. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. No aluminum, no baking soda, all natural. It's going to help to detoxify your body. And you use it as a daily deodorant. And by detoxifying your body regularly, you are improving your immune system and endocrine system.
Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary of Canada, and recently became an unpaid economic advisor to the Ukrainian president. She was there for the Trump-Zelensky meeting. So, Christian, you spent the week in Davos, in part as an unpaid economic advisor to President Zelensky of Ukraine. He had a meeting on Thursday with President Trump. Did you get a readout on that meeting and how it was perceived?
So I'm not speaking for Ukraine, David, but let's say as a friendly observer, what I am hearing, and I think what everyone else is hearing, from the Ukrainians, from the Americans, and indeed from the Europeans, is that at this point, the Ukrainians, the Americans, and the Europeans are all pretty much on.
When I was part of INET, years ago, she was always around because she was, one of the journalists. Never forget what she did to the protesters in Canada, the truckers, when she used economic warfare against them by debanking them, by freezing their accounts. She's dangerous. She's a globalist, and they feel as though using the banking system to harm protesters, they were peaceful. She thinks doing that is right. She thinks that using the banking system and debanking individuals is right. She's dangerous. She's a dangerous individual. But now what she's trying to do is not talking about the economies and wars and international policy, and trying to reboot her career. She's a globalist and she's dangerous. Now, why am I saying about the debanking? Well, Trump is suing JP Morgan for $5 billion. You know why? Because the Biden administration was trying to put pressure on him, his family, and supporters, and they were using it under the context of reputation. They didn't want to have clients that had a bad reputation to tarnish the bank. What bullshit. Meanwhile, JP Morgan passed Jamie Dimon's compensation package so you can make $43 billion. I'm sorry, $43 million, not $1 billion, $43 million in his compensation. Jamie Dimon should have never, and same thing with the CEO of Bank of America, should have never debanked a former president. But they thought they were going to get away with it because the Biden administration was supporting them. They thought they would get away with it because they never thought that Trump would be in power again. And this is what they're doing to Trump and Trump's family, or try to. Just imagine what they're doing to a regular citizen where the government doesn't like them. And what she did in Canada, Biden tried to do in the United States, and put pressure on the banks like Bank of America and like JP Morgan to prevent conservatives from being banked because of reputational risk. Now, when the crisis happens, the next financial meltdown, where's Jamie Dimon going to go? He's going to go to the American taxpayer. Where's Bank of America going to go? To the American taxpayer. Who bailed them out during Lehman? The American taxpayer.
Same page when it comes to this negotiation. And that's actually a remarkable outcome when you think about how rocky the path has been to get here. So, it feels like there is quite a lot of optimism from Ukrainians, from Americans, from Europeans. And I really think the bottom line is that the ball is in Putin's court.
You have been focused for some time on what comes after the war and the economic rebuilding of Ukraine. And you're advising President Zelensky now on that subject. At what point do we make that pivot?
I think we need to start making that pivot now. And, I really think, David, for the past 4 years of war, we have been, quite rightly, I think, focused on Ukraine as the virtuous victim. But I think this is going to be the year when we pivot to seeing the Ukrainians fight differently. And when we start seeing them as a really strong ally, as Europe's military shield, as Europe's arsenal, the country that knows how to build, knows how to wage modern war, and knows how to build the weapons for modern war. And in addition to all of that, as a huge economic opportunity. The opportunity has started now. There are a lot of companies in Ukraine
investing particularly in defense technology. One investor described defense tech as Ukraine's oil. So the investor said, you know, what oil has been to the Gulf states, defense technology is going to be to Ukraine. It is now. And when the war ends, that will be even more the case. And I think that's absolutely true.
What level and type of investments required? First, to have Ukraine play that role in the defense area, but then presumably to go beyond that in its economy, to have a more diversified economy beyond high-tech warfare.
It's gonna. What if data didn't sit still? What if intelligence moved with us? Cotality helps communities rise, turning insight into action. Because when intelligence moves, we all move forward. Cotality, intelligence beyond bounds.
If my mortgage lender used Agentforce, the powerful AI from Salesforce, a digital agent would have helped me pre-qualify before.
It's going to take a lot of money. I think the good news is we've seen what happens when countries in the Warsaw Pact, in the former Soviet Union, reformed their economies and joined the European Union. You know, in 1990, when the Warsaw Pact collapsed, when the Soviet Union collapsed, Poland and Ukraine had roughly the same per capita GDP. Today, Poland's per capita GDP is 5 times the per capita GDP of Ukraine. In 2004, you had countries of Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union join the EU, and those countries saw their GDP triple. One of the most important things about the economic opportunity for Ukraine is that Ukraine is now on a clear path to EU membership.
When you say it's going to take a lot of money, how much of that will come from private investment as opposed to governments such as the United States and various European governments? How much is public? How much of it will be private, do you think?
There is a lot to rebuild. And there is a very significant commitment already from the European Union to support Ukraine. The World Bank has been doing a lot. Ukraine right now is negotiating an IMF program of support as well. And it is going to take some public money, some public support from Ukraine's allies around the world. And, you know, I think it's very impressive the degree to which the EU is there. But what I think, and I think people get that, I think people understand that Ukraine is going to need the support to rebuild. The opportunity that I don't think people are fully focusing on right now is there's going to be a tremendous economic opportunity. And we've seen this story before. Some of the great investment opportunities in the world happened in Poland, in Eastern Europe, when we had the collapse of communism and the building of a market economy, and then joining the EU. And you're going to see a version of that happening with Ukraine. Some of the investment can start now. What I'm hearing from a lot of investors is the big investments are going to come when the war ends, and that security is a precondition for major investment. And I think that makes sense. But I think the smart players are starting to look at Ukraine and see this is going to be a place where you can really make some very significant investments, earn some really, really significant returns. Defense tech, I think, is going to be a really, really hot sector in Ukraine, and the smartest players are already there. But I think you're going to see people looking also at agriculture and agri-food. I think you're going to see people looking at forestry. I think you're going to see people looking at technology more generally. Ukraine is a very high-tech society. It's part of the reason that they've been able to do so well in the drone wars. And so I think you're going to see investments in technology more generally, including some technologies going from military use into civilian use, including with AI. And then I think you're going to see a really big privatization program. Ukraine has 3,000 state-owned enterprises. It has a plan to privatize them. So, you know, I think this is going to be a version of the emergence of market economies in Eastern Europe in the 1990s, at the beginning of this century. And that is going to be a huge opportunity for investors and also really great for the people of Ukraine.
We began your week in Davos, focused really on Greenland. and what President Trump was saying about Greenland and dealing with the Europeans. That seemed to have shifted on Wednesday when President Trump said that they had a framework for an agreement of some sort. What is that allied reaction? You talk to all about the allies, the European countries. What is the reaction to the drama we saw over Greenland this week?
It was a very volatile week. And I think there were a lot of experts here and across Europe who suddenly became experts in Greenland. There were a lot of ups and downs. I would judge the mood of the Europeans to be right now a feeling of relief and that a bullet has been dodged. And I think people are very happy that an off-ramp seems to have been found. But I do think the whole episode has been just the latest wake-up call for Europe. And I think, what the Europeans are feeling more and more is that they have to become united, that they have to strengthen their ability to militarily defend themselves, that they have to strengthen their economies to do that. I would say the most popular writer and philosopher this week in Davos has been the Greek general who wrote about the history of the Peloponnesian Wars. The Athenians said, look, we're stronger than you. We're going to do whatever we want to you. The strong do what they will, and the weak suffer what they must. This is the line everyone is repeating. And Ukraine actually fits in here because I think the Europeans are now seeing Ukraine not just as needing to be defended because the rule of law needs to be defended, not just needing to be defended because Ukraine is on Europe's border, but the Europeans are really starting to see Ukraine as a very important strategic ally. I've heard a lot of people saying, Ukraine actually has the strongest army in Europe. Ukraine has held off the Russians for 4 years. We need the Ukrainians right now as much as they need us.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is a gene expression cofactor that helps the cells to perform properly. Vitamin D3 helps to get cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected. That's the reason why you want to take it during the winter season. And vitamin D3 is super important for bone density and cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, get the vitamin D3, take it every day, but especially during the winter season. And since we are in the winter season and going into the allergy season, please get the lozenges and the drops. They're structural nanosilver. They'll help to mitigate any throat irritation, and you can take them prophylactically. So please go to my store and get the vitamin C orange splash or the Manuka honey. And I also have drops in the cherry flavor, honey and lemon, and also in blueberry. Get a few bags for your household, very high quality. The moment you have that throat irritation, take them right away. You want to improve that oral cavity and neutralize any throat irritation. And when you mitigate it, then you're reducing any downstream effects. Another great supplement that I have is the collagen. Collagen you take every day if you want to remodel your joints. All right. If you have joint pain or from a sports injury or just getting older, this will help. How does it work? It helps to remodel the joint by using collagen 2 and also ACAN. ACAN helps with the cushioning. Collagen 2 helps to remodel the joint and the cartilage. Collagen will also inhibit the enzymes that start eating up your cartilage and degrading your joint. It inhibits MMP3 and MMP13. It also inhibits a pain pathway called EP4. All right? It inhibits that. Collagen will improve the recruitment of and the use of glucosamine and chondroitin to help to remodel the joint and the cushioning of the joint, respectively. So please go to my store, get the collagen, take it every day, and help to remodel your joint and reduce the pain. You can stack this also with the collagen that I have, which is a powder. But you can take them separately, but they are synergistic. So please go to my store and get the collagen, remodel that joint, slow it down, slow down the aging of your joints. And it works really well if you have a sports injury where you're having problems with, joints, either in the shoulder, the knees, the hips, or the hand joints, or even the elbow. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, now we're gonna listen in to DW about 5,000 plus reported dead as U.S. Armada moves in.
From standoff with Europe over Greenland, Iran is now back at the center of the foreign policy agenda. President Trump has claimed he personally stopped what he said would have been the mass execution of hundreds of Iranian protesters. The claim Tehran has flatly denied. Iran's top prosecutor says no such order was ever issued, and he's described the US president's account as completely false. Meanwhile, Iranian activists are reporting a rapidly rising death toll from the regime's crackdown on nationwide demonstrations. Human rights groups say more than 5,000 people have been killed, most of them protesters. Reports say tens of thousands have been detained. It's against that backdrop that the US military has moved a major aircraft carrier strike group closer to the Middle East. The Pentagon said it's a precautionary move. Trump has threatened the use of force against the Iranian regime if the killing of protesters in Iran continues. Speaking aboard Air Force One, he described the naval buildup as an armada and outlined the threats he had made.
837. Legal AI won't create competitive advantage. I've heard a lot of people say that legal AI won't create competitive advantage, that when everyone has it, everyone has the same outcome. That's rubbish.
Looking to hire? ZipRecruiter delivers candidates with the right skills and experience fast. So fast that 4 out of 5 employers.
837, mostly young men, were going to be up on Thursday. And I said, if you hang those people, you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. It'll make what we did to your Iran nuclear look like peanuts. And an hour before this horrible thing was going to take place, they canceled it. And they actually said they canceled it. They didn't postpone it. They canceled it. So that was a good sign. But we have an armada. We have a massive fleet heading in that direction. And maybe we won't have to use it mostly.
Ben Taliblu is a senior director of the Iran program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in Washington, D.C. Welcome to DW. Let's start with President Trump's claims. How credible do you find it that the US president stopped the execution of 837 detainees in Iran?
It's an excellent question because the real question underwriting that is, who told the president about this figure and about this alleged cancellation order? Is this the product of a potential Arabchi Iranian foreign minister Witkoff U.S. special envoy back channel? Or did this come through a potential intermediary country in the region, perhaps? Who knows? But suffice to say, this sort of behavior, meaning the regime's judiciary being able to bend in a direction that it does not actually bend in, which is in the side of justice rather than the side of injustice, it would be unprecedented and therefore out of character. So I do believe that the claim is with respect dubious. The fact that you have a chief top-level judiciary official mocking it recently adds to the fact that it is dubious. You've had a former international affairs advisor to the Iranian Supreme Leader also mock President Trump for believing this recently. So suffice to say, I don't think Washington should be taking solace in the fact that it has been able to get a stay of execution or a cancellation or a commutation of these sentences altogether when we continue to see videos occasionally coming out of Iran of the regime engaging in a brutal crackdown, what is actually their most violent crackdown in the 47-year history of the Islamic Republic.
And this is what is sort of part of the bleakest part of this picture. On the one hand, if it's true, we're talking about more than 800 people who won't be killed, while the regime has killed more than 5,000 people in this crackdown. Is this a particularly brutal crackdown, or is this just...
First of all, where's the proof of the 5,000? It's probably 2 or 3 or 4, but some of the estimates are tens of thousands. All right, where's the proof? I want the proof because we've been lied to before. Remember Desert Storm? Remember the War on Terror? Okay, where's the proof? Let's have the professional journalists show the proof. All right. Secondly, Trump should have killed the Ayatollah back when we were bombing the nuclear facilities. Trump chickened out. So here we go. We have to go back in and clean up the mess because we had an executive branch that was afraid.
Undertaken.
You hit the nail right on the head. This is what is fast amounting to be the most brutal crackdown from the state against the street in a rapid period of time, largely under the cover of a 2+ week internet outage, in, again, the 47-year history of the Islamic Republic. And if you believe the other publicly reported figures, the 5,000 figure is confirmed by independent human rights agencies that can give you names, faces, places, pictures, last names, family accounts, secondary confirmations. But if you believe popular reporting, that is also talking to nurses, doctors, lawyers, hospitals, morgues, morticians, and people in the service industry, the number that you are hearing as baseline is 20,000. And that means that this is the most violent crackdown from the state against the street, not just in the past 47 years, but in the past century or century and a half of modern or contemporary Iranian history. And again, a regime that is willing to do all of this to its own population. Imagine what it would do to a foreign population. Imagine what it would do to people that it actually believes were trying to overthrow it. So this is really a horrifying moment in contemporary Iranian political history.
And so what does this horror tell us about where this regime is now? Are these mass killings, is that a result of, I don't know, a fear on the part of the regime? Has this been a particularly popular uprising, so the numbers killed on the streets are so much greater? What are we to learn of this carnage?
Well, it's
This print, we print signs so people can see your brand up close, but we also print signs so that people can see your business here, see it here, and see it here.
Well, it's falling back on a tried and true playbook of killing Iranians under the cover of darkness that we saw attempted in November 2019, where for 3 to 6 days of an internet blackout, 1,500 people were killed, quite literally with weapons of war in several very localized areas. But these protests have touched all of Iran's 31 very different provinces. It spiraled very quickly from an economic trigger for protests into a mass political contagion of popular protests from the street against the state, not going for economic reform or social reform, but wholesale political change. And the violence that we see enacted is a measure of fear of the regime, fear of this contagion effect continuing to grow, and also cognizance of how far the regime has fallen, and also how tough of a position they are in, because make no mistake, these protests follow less than 6 months after the 12-day war, where the regime was beaten and battered abroad, and now is looking to project strength at home against unarmed protesters. So because of the strategic situation, because of the time, because of the context, and because also the fear all of these things point to one conclusion for the regime, which is that the regime believed it could shoot its way out of the crisis. And then right now it will be up to Donald Trump to see if he can prove them wrong.
Okay, and Donald Trump now has an aircraft carrier strike group moving closer to the region. Let us speculate. What do you think this will do, this strike group? What's it there to do, and under what sort of circumstances?
A strike group that also contains many fighter jets, as well as an attack submarine, as well as a new squadron.
Deterrence to make sure that there's not a massive offensive from Iran hitting Saudi Arabia or Israel, and moving forward to decapitating the Ayatollah. Plus, it's also signaling to Putin that time's running out. He needs to start having peace in Ukraine. Because you got to remember, Iran's aligned with Russia.
Of F-15s coming to Jordan, as well as more ballistic missile defense capabilities moving to the Arab side of the Persian Gulf, in addition to the buildup that was already there, as well as, of course, America's major partner, Israel, rushing to rebuild its air and missile defenses, which is among the most layered in the world after the 12-day war. So the region is ready. The region is gearing up to make sure that the Islamic Republic knows it cannot escalate if Donald Trump chooses to engage in a punishing military response to enforce his own redlining population. But again, President Trump, being the negotiator-in-chief as well as the commander-in-chief, is looking for all options to be on the table. If past this prologue, that might mean military strikes, that might mean all this talk or potential talk or hyping the stay of execution could be a dupe or could be a head thing so that the president can actually double down on the military option at a time that is most surprising to the adversary and most advantageous to him. But make no mistake, I think Trump is interested in keeping all options on the table, A, because personally he likes flexibility, but B, because it keeps both allies and adversaries guessing up until the last moment. The reason I would say this is different and why you don't want everyone guessing consistently is because of the multiple times he has drawn that red line and the high casualty counts we have in Tehran.
Okay, but on that, if we talk about Trump's desire for stability, these things get messy very, very quickly. If this did become a shooting war, if he did take out the regime, that's not going to end neatly. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything ends up being happily ever after, does it? Surely what you get is years and years of chaos and strife.
Well, I would say that by keeping the Islamic Republic at the helm and not dealing with this issue earlier, we have locked in, and Americans in the region and the multiple cycles of violence that the region have seen, let alone the multiple cycles of violence from the state against the street in response to protests, have been the result of trying to preference stability over paying some of these costs, and instead having to have us, having to have the region, and also having to have the Iranian people pay that cost upfront as they have already. So in many ways, that equilibrium has already shifted. It would be a mistake to say that the alternative to a strike is stasis, is stability, is peace, because clearly those are not the prerogatives of the Islamic Republic at home or abroad. And more fundamentally, I would say, again, much will depend to the heart of your question on the targets, if President Trump chooses to go kinetic, the targets that he chooses to strike. You know, he could try to first suppress Iranian missile fire to limit the ability of the regime to go back. He could try to engage in a low-intensity responsibility to protect campaign to support Iranian protesters as they take back onto the streets. Or he could go big and go after political targets or command and control. The options really are all up to him right now. We simply don't know the direction he'll go in, nor do we know what relationship a potential strike may have with his larger and pre-existing
destroy the military apparatus and decapitate the theocratic regime. That's what he needs to do. And if he doesn't, he chickens out and he's just kicking the can down the road to have a bigger problem. It's that simple. It's time to hit Iran now. You know, by the way, when he does, you can make a lot of money in oil.
Of maximum pressure.
That's a fascinating analysis, and we thank you for it, Ben Taliblu from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. Thank you, sir.
what I want to do is listen to this take on Trump's armada to Iran. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. This is a great way to improve your immune system and your endocrine system. When you're detoxifying your body, you're also improving your brain function. So it's really important to regularly detoxify your body. I have lots of different products that will help to detoxify your body. Zeolite you can take every day, 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink it with filtered water. Another thing that's very important to do is stay away from processed foods. Make sure you drink filtered water regularly and clean the environment in your home. Get rid of chemicals, paints that you don't need. If you need these in your home, make sure you put them in double containers, double layered containers. And that way you're preventing the degassing. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite and detoxify your body regularly. Al-Arabiya English is the name of the podcaster here.
For more on this, I'm joined by Rahita Durgam, advisor on U.S. and international affairs. Rahita, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. Rahita, President Trump has warned that a U.S. naval armada is headed towards the Iranian region, as we just saw amid these protests. And the U.S. has also sent additional F-15 fighter jets to the Middle East. What do you see as the real intention behind these military deployments here? Does this signal a genuine risk of direct confrontation between the U.S. and Iran?
Yes, absolutely. This sort of movement of military assets is not just to give a warning only. The purpose of such a movement is to be ready to strike. The timing of the strike would be, of course, up to the President of the United States, but everything is in place. The strike itself is ready. The targets have been identified, about 50 of them or more. Cyber attacks are on the table and very important because the idea is to neutralize the infrastructure of the regime in Tehran, to paralyze it. And so therefore we have a very serious situation. I think the pretext or the trigger, if you will, for any such military action by the United States will come from Iran. How much does Iran give of a pretext or an excuse or a trigger to Donald Trump depends on what does Iran do with the demonstrators. If the blackout remains and we don't know what's happening, then especially if there are any executions, I think that would be a green light for Donald Trump to say, let's do it. Don't forget, Donald Trump has just finished his job in Davos, and he has right now finished the issue of Greenland, at least for now. So his hands are free, and I think he plans to act.
And what does, if he acts or when, what does President Trump want to achieve here? What will he do if he's actually able to bring down the Iranian government? I read a report today from Chatham House that says that Trump's objective is to force Iran into strategic submission. What does this mean?
Well, yielding. Strategic submission is another way, another way of saying I give up. The Iranians have not agreed so far, and they will not, to reform their doctrine. The regime's doctrine, that of nuclear, of missiles, and of course of what we call the arms of Iran, which is the military, paramilitary forces they use in other countries. If the regime is not ready and willing to reform its doctrine, then there is the other option. And so for the first time, we see clarity in that the objective is to bring down the regime. And of course, that is in conjunction with addressing the way the regime has been treating the people in Iran. And they admit to 3,000 plus people killed in these demonstrations. Of course, we hear that it's much more. But the idea of Donald Trump is not to, of course, his first idea would have rather that there is an implosion from within that he helps from outside. Right now, we have both happening, the implosion and the intervention from the outside. So how is that intervention? For now, it is going to be through, for example, a blockade for Iranian tankers, oil tankers. That is going to be, sort of like to strangulate Iran's most important source for its economy. That will help the demonstrators get angrier, and therefore there will be more oppression and more bloody oppression, and that's how the regime will dig its own, sort of history. However, this will be very watchful and very keen on understanding and looking at what is happening with the military establishment in Iran. That is a very key issue we need to watch.
And Rahida, Iran's internal unrest could also have direct ripple effects across the Middle East, especially if there's any type of U.S. intervention, of course. So how concerned should countries in this region be about the broader implications here?
Of course, there is concern, not for the spillover, not over the spillover to other countries, because they don't have problems of this kind. But of course, any instability in a country like Iran is frightening for the whole neighborhood. But chaos is also very worrisome. That's why there has been an intervention by the governments of that region, and particularly Arab governments, to urge calm. But on the other hand, there isn't a possibility to urge calm if the people of Iran are bringing down their government. And that is not going to be happening without the help from the outside, namely the United States. I think, of course, there is no love lost for what this regime has done to the region. And the behavior of Iran towards many countries in the region has been one of disrespect of sovereignty. Exporting your doctrine and employing militias to do the job on your behalf is hardly a friendly way of building relations with the neighborhood. However, there has been attempts to see if that could change, if the relationship could get better. And that one example is the Saudi Iranian attempt at bringing things to a better place. And the Arabs are helping, and Oman is trying to help in that dialogue that is not getting anywhere between the United States and Iran, but because Iran can't afford to do what the United States wants them to do. Exactly, that from their point of view in the Iranian capital, the government thinks that this is a recipe for its downfall. If they submit, if they yield, they fall. On the other hand, some argue, and I would argue, that the only way for the survivor of the regime is by accepting to amend the doctrine, to change the behavior, to accept things that they were not willing to accept on the nuclear issue and the missiles. So it's a very bad day, or very bad days coming for the Iranian regime. But maybe the Iranian people think that it's time that they choose otherwise. And again, I repeat, maybe there will be defections amongst the military that would help save Iran and save not the regime, but save Iran from chaos.
Rahida Durgam, thank you so much for your analysis on this developing story.
Thank you.
All right. It looks like there was a shooting that took place by a border patrol. So let's listen into live now.
I think it could come down very quickly if the opposition could find ways to find and develop splits among the top leadership in the regular military, which has a lot of.
Well, there's no.
Well, this is a Fox News alert out in Minneapolis. Reports of a shooting there, and that the suspect, according to DHS, was armed. Now, tensions are at the scene are high right now. You're looking at a live image. Let's go to Garrett Tenney. He is live in Minneapolis. Garrett.
Yeah, and Haley, this just happened this past hour, so details are still coming in. We'll get a clearer picture as this unfolds, so it's still early. But what we were being told at this point from DHS is that Border Patrol had some type of interaction with a man who was armed. This is a picture that our Bill Malusian got from DHS. This is the gun and 2 magazines that they say he was armed with. And Border Patrol engaged him. There was a shooting. DHS says that CPR was being performed on that person. And the Star Tribune reports that that person has now been taken to the hospital by ambulance. While the details are still coming in, we are already seeing reaction to this. Governor Tim Walz just tweeted out, "I just spoke with the White House after another horrific shooting by federal agents this morning. Minnesota has had it. This is sickening. The president must end this operation, pull the thousands of violent, untrained officers out of Minnesota now." Now, we should point out that while this is happening, this area right around where this happened, this is about 1.5 miles from where Renee Good was shot about 2.5 weeks ago. This is the 3rd shooting in Minneapolis over the past 2.5 weeks involving federal agents and folks here on the ground. This is going to be another flashpoint. Yesterday was a statewide shutdown with thousands of people coming out into the streets, marching, calling for ICE to get out of the city. This incident is going to play in that. We are already seeing on social media that folks are playing these different narratives. Tim Walz there talking about how this was just suggesting it was an attack on an unarmed individual. People online are already tweeting out this story that this happened, is that this person was just assaulted and unarmed at the time. So we have these competing narratives that we are going to see play out over the next day. And we have a press conference with Border Patrol and ICE that was scheduled to take place at noon Eastern. That, we are told, has now been pushed back to 1 p.m. But over at the scene of the shooting, we have a camera that just got there a short time ago. There are, we're told, more than 100 protesters, and they are being pushed back from that area. Tear gas has been deployed. Flashbangs have been deployed. Local police are now there on the ground trying to get control.
So we lost Garrett Tenney. We'll see if we can get him back, but I'm monitoring these details from our Bill Malusian here. And just to reiterate, this happened on 26th Street East and Nicollet Avenue. This is what Border Patrol is telling Fox News. CPR was administered to this victim. It happened around 10:17 a.m., according to Bill Malusian. And what he's hearing from our sources, and the individual who was shot, again, this is all preliminary. We're just bringing you the details as we get them. DHS telling Fox News that the suspect was armed with a gun and 2 magazines. CPR was administered. That individual was in an ambulance. And at this moment, we do not have any details on the individual in his current status. And you, of course, heard the comment from Governor Walz. We're going to monitor all of this. You look at that scene.
More on this.
It appears to be an agitated scene there in Minneapolis this morning. And this, of course, comes after the shooting of Renee Good, which happened just a few weeks ago. We are going to keep you updated. We will be in touch with Bill Malusian, among others, and Garrett Tenney on the ground.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe
If
to
the donation makes sense for you right now.
for daily highlights.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. This will help to build muscle. This helps with the gene expression to reduce atrophy. This is super important if you're 40 years of age or older. This has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle. Make sure you do some resistance training. If you're an athlete, you will also benefit from this by taking it. You'll recover quicker after your workout, and you're going to be helping to improve the strength for your sport. You can stack Myotrol with the Gladiator Barley or take them separately. Gladiator Barley is a micronutrient. It's a powder. It has some protein in it. This has multiple purposes. This is dual purpose. This is going to help to build muscle when you do the resistance training. They'll bring down inflammation, so you're going to recover quicker. It's going to soak up free radicals and detoxify your body. And by bringing down free radicals, detoxifying your body, and lowering inflammation, you're improving your cardiovascular health, your brain function, your immune system, and your endocrine system. Super important. You're also helping with joint health. And by taking gladiator barley and building up muscle, you're controlling your A1C levels. So it's dual purpose. Take gladiator barley, do some resistance training, build muscle. But stack it with the myotrol and you get added benefits to help to slow down the aging process. And if you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll benefit from this because myotrol helps with the gene expression to build muscle. Gladiator barley are the building blocks to actually build the muscle. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the gladiator barley. And again, this will help to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, and detoxify your body, which is super important to do every day to slow down the aging process. Okay, I want to take a look at.
Now, today is dominated by Donald Trump's standoff with Europe over Greenland.
I want to take a listen into this shooting here. Shots. Okay, this was live now.
Again, if you are just joining us here, we are getting limited information. All of this developing here at this hour, and I do want to remind you that viewer discretion is advised at this hour, as you're going to hear some vulgar language. There may be some signs with different curse words on there as well. What we know so far, coming in from Bill Malugin over at Fox News at this hour, again, very limited details, but he does say that multiple law enforcement sources are telling him there has been a Border Patrol involved shooting in Minneapolis near 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue, with Border Patrol shooting a person. He's told the person is quote unquote down and medics are working on them, but no details on who it was or what led up to the shooting. DHS also telling Bill the suspect was armed with a gun, which has been recovered by federal agents. All of this under investigation at this point, just developing. So we're leaving the audio up so you can kind of listen in. But again, viewer discretion advised, as there is a lot of vulgar language, not only that will appear on screen, but is being chanted there by those protesters and demonstrators in the background, following what we've seen all throughout the month, these clashes between the protesters and federal law enforcement in the area.
And think about it. Every single one of those protesters, every single one of them is complicit in preventing the government from getting rid of illegal aliens. The reason why they're there is that they want to get rid of the illegal aliens. So everyone that's there, that's fighting against ICE, is for illegal immigration, and they are inhibiting the federal government from actually executing lawful detentions and expulsions. Do they want just unfettered immigration? Because guess what? You'll lose your country. Biden destroyed this country, destroyed it with its illegal immigrant policy. And now Trump was put into office legally to fix the problem, and he's doing it. So, you know what? I don't feel bad for the protesters. Not at all. Zero. I have zero empathy for them. What they're doing is you're just playing the back. You're just playing the background. All right. Let's listen into yeah. It's amazing. You know, it's about they'll protest for the illegal aliens, but where's the protests about the carnage that's happening in Iran? Isn't that a little odd? Don't you think that's a little odd? The woke people will keep on pushing for illegal aliens to stay in the country. But what about the thousands of individuals being killed by a theocratic regime? Oh, that narrative in Iran doesn't fit really well with the wokeism in the United States. You know what? Woke people have a serious brain defect.
My name is Ty. My proudest financial accomplishment is retiring by the time I got to 40. When the layoff did happen, it was a blessing. It really felt like it.
Thank you, Mark Thiessen. We want to bring in Bill Malugin, who has been on this bill, and I'm looking back at your emails since 10:37 a.m. this morning. We learned about this, you learned about it rather, 20 minutes after this shooting took place. What are you learning this hour?
Yeah, Bailey, good morning to you. So I heard that this happened a little after 10:15 Eastern time, and I'll start with what we do know. This was a Border Patrol involved shooting. This was not ICE. Border Patrol shot somebody who DHS tells Fox News was armed with a gun. They have recovered that gun as well as 2 magazines. Now, I'm told the person was shot multiple times and that medics were working on them and that CPR was being performed. There is a video floating around online of the shooting where you can see this shooting happening. What we do not know right now is what led up to the shooting or what type of enforcement this was. Was this a targeted immigration enforcement? Did Border Patrol know who this person was? Was this somebody in the U.S. illegally that they were marking for arrest? Was this a protester? Was this an agitator? Was this a U.S. citizen? Those are the questions we don't know right now. Obviously, when something like this happens, information is coming out very quickly and there's all sorts of differing reports. But what we can confirm is that Border Patrol agents did, in fact, shoot somebody in Minneapolis this morning. And DHS tells Fox News that person was armed with a gun. You're looking at images of that gun right now. The gun was loaded and had its 2 separate magazines. So we do not have an update on that person's condition just yet. I'm working the phone, working the sources to find out exactly what led up to this, who this person was, how it all went down. But you can see from the live images, obviously this is going to turn into a powder keg situation. You got politicians putting statements out already. You got people gathering to protest. You got, federal agents and police trying to hold those folks back. As information starts to develop on this shooting throughout the morning, you're going to have more and more people showing up at the scene here, and this is likely going to turn into another scene of heated protest today based on what we've seen in Minneapolis the last couple of weeks, Kaylee. But going to continue working the phones. All we can confirm right now, Border Patrol shooting, 1 suspect down, and gun recovered.
And, we're looking at that image there of the weapon that the individual who was shot had. You just noted, I read that there were 2 magazines there, but this is a loaded weapon?
That is what some of the initial reports are. I'm not going to 100% confirm that yet. All I can 100% confirm is that a gun was recovered and that agents have that gun and that the suspect was armed.
And one final question for you. Governor Walz' statement, I just spoke with the White House after another horrific shooting by federal agents this morning. Minnesota has had it. This is sickening. Out right there. He said he spoke with the White House. Was it Secretary Noem who said she had an open line of communication?
Let's go to GBN News here.
There was a cabinet.
This is GB News. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. Well, back to some breaking news in Minneapolis. The governor, Tim Walz, who's seeing live pictures now, says that ICE agents have shot another person in Minneapolis. Of course, this is, there was obviously a shooting a little while, a week or so ago. Now, apparently, a number of masked federal agents surrounded a man who was forced to the floor in a struggle. Then several gunshots were heard before the agents, some of whom were holding guns, move away from the man who can be seen lying on his back on the street. Now, what we're seeing, these are some of the videos, but these are some of the footage that's been seen, but it hasn't been fully verified. But of course, this comes a few weeks after Renee Nicole Good was shot dead by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. So we're hearing more reports on this.
Yeah, this is terribly sad, and it's actually sickening to watch. It's very frightening times now. It really is, and I just think
the bottom line is this. The bottom line is this: the protesters shouldn't be there. They're protesting that the government is taking away their citizens that they claim should be there, but yet these citizens that they're protecting are illegal. They're here illegally. ICE is there to round them up and get them out of the country. The American voter voted for this, and it is time for our government to start following the law. Following the law. And It is time for us to wake up that if we don't have a strong border and a strong ability to maintain our currency, we don't have a country. And unfortunately, we have these protesters that are woke, that are Democrats, that are liberal, with a liberal mindset, that want to destroy this country. And once it's destroyed and they realize that their policies are wrong, you can't fix it. You can't fix it. All right? They've already destroyed the ability to go back to better days. So they're putting themselves in harm's way on top of, some of these protesters really believe in what they're protesting. They really believe that we should have open borders. They really believe that illegal immigration should happen. But that's not the law of the land. The law of the land is you're here illegally, you can be deported. It's that simple. And these individuals that are standing in the way, don't be surprised if something bad happens, especially if you're preventing ICE, preventing the federal government from doing their job. That's the issue here.
It's not just this, like you mentioned before, it's not just attacking and going after what originally was planned for illegal immigrants. It's now everyone is, worried and they're protesting and there's no sort of stopping.
No. Wait, hold on. They let this spill over to now even American citizens because they're impeding on the actual execution of the orders of ICE. ICE has been told, round up the illegals and get them out of the country. And you have citizens out there that are preventing ICE from doing it. And they want to have the optics for the midterm election to try to demonize the Republican Party, saying that they're against the citizens. No, they're just following the law. The law is they're here illegally, they get out. They're either forced or they can leave voluntarily. But either way, they're leaving.
It's really showing with the polls right now. It's really showing with the protests in, most states right now. And at the same time, there's also been reports that are
polls don't mean anything. We have a constitutional republic. It's not a pure democracy, honey. Doesn't matter.
ICE agents that are not properly trained, and it's so easy for them to come out there, and he's now put even more billions into it, and it's just really chaotic. I was on the train the other day, just quickly, and there was a man who was actually, talking, saying, I'm here, and he was actually the train driver, and he was having an American accent, and one of the men stood next to me saying, oh, I bet, you never hear that often, but I guess he's just running away from Trump. So, it's happening every day where people are scared of being America.
I don't know. Let's not scare. We don't know what's led up to this shooting. We don't know.
First of all, ICE is doing the right thing, and their lives are at risk because of an out-of-control mob. That's what's happening. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and support the work that I do. Because my channel is about a constitutional republic, where we have strong borders, strong currency, and a free market. America first. We will be the dominating power. There's nothing wrong with being a benevolent empire. All right? Please go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. 68 nutrients so you can fight against the globalists. All right? All kidding aside, it has a very comprehensive compound profile shown on the screen here. This will target brain function, so you don't think like a crazy liberal. All right, so it's going to improve your brain function, improve your cardiovascular health, so you have better blood flow, less plaque formation. You'll have more musculature. You'll have a faster metabolism, more energy. You'll be slowing down the aging process, boosting up your immune system, helping your endocrine system. You'll have a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day. You'll be able to sleep better. You'll be able to concentrate. Your cognition will be better. Please go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. This will help to slow down the aging process. And you will start to feel the effects of this within 72 hours. This is a month's supply. And get the C60. C60 is a very strong antioxidant. It's 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, and avocado oil. Take it a teaspoon a day, every day, on an empty stomach for best absorption. The reason why C60 isn't an oil is that that's the way you're going to be able to absorb it. Some people try to take C60 in a powder. It doesn't work. All right? That's bad for you. C60 in an oil, you're going to get the absorption and the proper dispersion of C60. All right? C60 is a very strong antioxidant, and you're going to get multiple benefits from this. It's going to help with your immune system, help with your endocrine system. By soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, it's going to prevent plaque formation because it's bringing down inflammation and soaking up those free radicals. At the neuron level, your neurons are going to be healthier, so you're going to be able to think better. You're going to have better connections between your neurons. You'll have more energy because this improves the mitochondria in the neuron, so you'll have more ATP, more production of neurotransmitters. These are all very important. Your cells in your different tissues and your organs will perform better. Please go to my store, take a teaspoon a day every day, and you will notice you're aging slower. This also helps the basal layer of your skin, and you can stack this with resveratrol to improve your skin health. Within 1 year of taking this, you will look younger. If you take this every day, you are going to also notice these multiple systems improving: endocrine system, immune system, cardiovascular system, brain function. So please go to my store and get the C60. And don't be a crazy liberal. That's the one thing that could destroy America. Crazy liberals. Thank you for listening. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Follow my advice. I'm going to show you how to make some money with the turmoil in the market and the turmoil around the world, but I'm also telling you how to slow down the aging process. The Republic will stand. The United States will be around for another 250 years if we have an informed populace that is not weak. We need to be strong mentally, we need to be strong physically, and we need to move forward and have fortitude. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day. And God bless America.